So in this video, we are going to watch. We're going to talk about George Washington's farewell address. And you might be thinking, wait a second, we just started talking about George Washington and his presidency, and we're already going into his farewell address. Well, yes. So we've hit kind of some of the bigger points as during his 2 terms as president, as far as domestic policy. We haven't hit the foreign policy as much, but some of those things kind of come up again during Adams' presidency, and so we'll kind of look back a little bit at some of the foreign policy issues of Washington's presidency when we talk about Adams, because they kind of become bigger then, and so we'll just kind of hit those at that point. But with his farewell address, we do get one aspect of his foreign policy, and we'll look at that as well. So in his farewell address, there's 2 big points that I want you to understand and know. And so let's get started looking at what those are. So the first thing, his farewell address is in 1796, and the big thing, one of the 2 big things he suggests and encourages the nation with is say, hey, we need to avoid entangling alliances with other nations. So in other words, we need to continue being neutral when other nations are at war. And he does this by his reasons for this are that, one, that we're a young nation, we really can't afford another war. We don't, and we have no need to get involved in their conflicts. And he kind of reminds people, like, remember, other countries are looking out for themselves, and they try to influence our nation in their own best interests, not our best interests. So he's in particular kind of talking about France here, because France and Great Britain go to war a lot, and they've been at war off and on for several hundred years now, and they're still in conflict. And so we have somewhat of an allegiance to France because they helped us with the American Revolution. And so it would be very easy for people to feel this sense of, well, we need to help France anytime they need our help. And Washington is just reminding people, hey, listen, they're not doing this. If they're at war, they're not doing things for our best interest. They're not looking out for us when they go to war. They're looking out for themselves. And so keep that in mind. Don't think that means you need to help them every time they go to war with Great Britain, because they'll drag you into war all the time. The other point he makes is, don't let your sympathy for one country, in other words, your sympathy for France, or your hatred for another, probably Great Britain, influence you. You need to do what is best for our country. And so staying neutral, avoiding entangling alliances. In other words, these permanent alliances where if they go to war, you're required to go to war as well. That is not a good foreign policy, and we need to avoid that. So that's his foreign policy advice. And then at home, it's kind of similar in a lot of ways. He says avoid political parties. So things that will, anything, whether it's a foreign nation or a party that would make you do what's not best for the nation as a whole, he's telling you to not be most closely aligned in that. And so he's warning people, hey, the country is most strong when we're unified. You don't let loyalty to a region of the country or a party overcome our unity as a nation. He says the independence and liberty you possess are the work of joint councils, joint efforts, common dangers, sufferings, and successes. So you can think of the American Revolution. They were successful primarily when they were able to work together the best. The Constitution was created when they came together and compromised. It was joint councils, joint efforts, those things. And so he's saying continue that. Continue to work together. Don't get entrenched in your political parties. Now, it's important to recognize that Alexander Hamilton was definitely a person that helped to influence this, because he was very clear. He was worried about France. He was worried about how things were going in France, and he was clearly trying to. So that goes back to the foreign policy. He was clearly trying to avoid us getting involved in helping France. He also is worried about the Democratic Republican Party. And so Washington is not affiliated with a political party, and so Alexander Hamilton is associated with the Federalist Party, and so he's saying, you know what, we really need to try to. He's really saying, hey, don't get into this this party is best or this party is best. We need to stay focused and try to stay unified as best we can. And don't let your loyalty to your party overcome your problems as a nation. Overcome you and become a bigger problem in your nation. So that is Washington's advice to the nation at the end of his presidency.